Hello, and welcome to Cheers to Fears, where we take horror films and turn them into drinking games. We're your two hosts. I'm Tucker.
And I'm Alex. Today we will be making a drinking game for Halloween H20, directed by Steve Miner, whose debut film was Friday the 13th Part 2, and followed that up with Friday the 13th Part 3. So, in turn, this is the person that you probably have to thank for Jason wearing his iconic hockey mask. The writers this time around were Robert Zappia and Matt Greenberg. Greenberg helped with writing a few screenplays for The New Pet Cemetery and 1408, both of which were based off the Stephen King books.
Halloween H20 strangely takes place after Halloween 2, which makes it the unofficial Halloween 3 that features Michael Myers. In this new timeline, Laurie Strode has a son named John, and she has moved to California to be the headmistress of a private school. Laurie has not left behind the ghosts of her past, as she still hallucinates that she's seeing Michael Myers on occasion.
Her son notices that she is not coping well and tries to convince his mother to loosen the leash on him and allow him to live more freely as John thinks Michael Myers is dead.
That's it. That's enough. I can't take it, Mom. He's dead. Michael Myers is dead.
As we know, Michael Myers is never truly dead, and John will find out very soon just how real his uncle is.
From this point on in the video, there will be spoilers. The good news is that you only have to watch the first two Halloween movies to be caught up with this installment, and you would not have to watch Halloween 3 through 6 before watching this video. We will give you the rules now so that you can watch it without having to hear us spoil any of the movie. With that out of the way, let's move on to our breakdown for the rules.
To start us off, let's talk about our first rule, death. If you see somebody die on screen, you take a sip. As for the 7th Halloween movie, there is only 8 deaths in total.
Of course, what will follow up deaths is that if you hear somebody scream, cry, or yell, you take a sip. This means that if you were as observant as us, you would find yourself taking 20 sips for this rule.
Now onto our drinking rules exclusively for the Halloween franchise. Starting with, if you hear somebody say Halloween or see it written on screen, take a sip.
Oh, Miss Tate, happy Halloween.
Halloween was said or seen at a relatively good pace for this movie, as we counted 15 drinks this time around.
Next up, making its return after the last drinking game, is that if you see a pumpkin on screen, you take a drink. For this movie, we saw 34 pumpkins, some of which were mercy ruled. Even if this seems like a high number of drinks for one rule, just remember that some of our other Halloween installments are much worse.
If you see somebody committing a slasher sin, you drink is the next rule. This probably isn't as bad as Steve Miner's Friday the 13th films, considering this was a pretty low number, sitting at 6 sips.
Moving on, if you hear the names Michael or Myers being said, you must take a sip.
Michael Myers.
This rule is usually fairly well balanced, and it will stay that way for this movie, as it only resulted in us taking 13 sips.
Continuing with the theme of Michael, you must take a sip once you see him on screen. This rule is generally ahead of the bell curve compared to some of the other rules, and that trend does not stop as we took 18 sips from our beverage of choice.
And of course, you should always take a sip if you hear the Halloween theme play in any Halloween movie. For this one in particular, we heard it a total of 8 times.
Now, we have 2 rules that will be exclusive for Halloween H20. The first of 2 rules is that if you hear Laurie's past being brought up at all, you must take a sip. This rule gave us 6 sips.
20 years. 20 years. Don't you think he would have shown up by now?
Closing off our list of rules is that if you see the gates to the campus, you are required by the laws of this drinking game to take a sip. This rule was not too hard on the liver, considering that it only resulted in us taking 4 sips from our drinks.
And that concludes the rules for our drinking game for Halloween H20. The total number of drinks for this movie, by our count, comes to 132 sips, which is the equivalent to drinking just short of 4.5 standard 12-ounce cans. That number, of course, is based off of our 30 sip per can scale.
So we want to make one thing clear. We are not calling this movie Halloween H20, 20 years later, H20, none of that. We're not calling it any of those. We're calling it Halloween H20. It just sounds better.
I completely agree. In all seriousness, though, pace-wise, the movie felt pretty good. Still lots of pumpkins, which is to be expected for a Halloween movie.
Yeah, like the drinking was, I guess it was 132, which is a reasonable amount. It feels like one of the first of Halloween movies, which are kind of just good pace throughout the whole thing. I mean, I know a couple of the beginning ones were pretty good too, but some of them got pretty intense. This one was kind of just a good, average, fun drinking game, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. So to start off, Halloween H20 did a few things, I think, quite a bit better, especially compared to the recent installments.
Oh yeah. It was a breath of fresh air coming after 4, 5, and 6. watching this one was, definitely a good, clean slate.
Yeah.
And I appreciated it.
I guess one good thing to mention is Laurie is back.
Yep.
In my opinion, she's not as good as her first 2 films. I mean, maybe as good as her second one. But in saying that, it's completely fine since she's not only the main character of the Halloween franchise again, but she was also good in her role. So
Yeah, she filled her duty, and she served the movie well with the position she was in. I do agree she wasn't as good, especially in the first one, but she was still pretty good overall.
She also did get a scene with her mother, Janet Leigh, the girl from Psycho, famously.
Yeah.
2 scream queens of their generation, mother and daughter.
Yeah, it was kind of cool to learn about that, and I guarantee she was pretty happy to get to be in a movie with her mom.
Yeah.
That would have been pretty cool, I guess.
It was kind of meta just because the whole scene, she was like, can I be maternal for a second? I'm like, already are.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
chemistry. And along with that, we see kind of her past being revealed. We see how she was traumatized by the events of Halloween 1 and 2, and she resorted to alcohol to kind of cope with her PTSD.
Yeah, that was one thing I liked to see in this movie. With it being 20 years later, it was nice to see how she still kind of hasn't lived down the past, and she's just kind of stuck thinking about what happened to her. It was a good way to show how PTSD can affect someone so many years down the line.
Yep. Laurie also takes the place of Loomis in a sense in this movie.
Sometimes, yeah.
She's the one saying Michael's crazy, Michael's still out there, taking people at gunpoint.
Yeah.
And hijacks the car to kill Michael herself.
Which, we could have even made this a rule instead of Loomis talking shit about Michael. It could have been Laurie.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was kind of believable with her, though, acting a little crazy just because of the trauma she went through. Whereas Loomis, it felt unjust because he was supposed to be professional, but she was kind of just a victim.
Yeah.
So for me, it made a little bit more sense.
Oh, yeah.
And you mentioned she tries to kill Michael herself, and side note, she succeeds. But the next movie is called Resurrection, so we didn't really feel like it was necessary to put Michael Myers' death as a death from one of our counts.
Yeah.
So if you want to count it as a rule and take a drink for it, be our guest, but just know that we didn't count it in our tally.
Continuing on with great things they did about the movie, there's no more crazy-ass cult shit that over-explains Michael Myers.
Yeah, and I'm finally glad that's over with.
Yeah.
They don't try to explain his supernatural capabilities or whatever. It's just, kind of back to its roots in a sense.
It doesn't get to a point where the plot's overly convoluted.
Yeah. Another thing that I liked about this movie was there's kind of a different premise in a way. It wasn't set in Haddonfield. They weren't bunkered down in a house the whole time. Like, they were in a campus of a school, which is wide open, left for everyone to see what's going on, really. So I kind of like that premise, and it was a nice change of pace, I guess.
Yeah. I guess one other thing that you could either look as a good thing or a bad thing is Laurie's son, John. So he could have been a better character, in my opinion. Honestly, I liked Danielle Harris as she was Jamie. I liked her a little bit more, honestly. But it's something relatively new having a son, which you don't really see in a Halloween movie, especially with her actually having interactions with him, as we didn't really see anything with Jamie and Laurie, as Laurie was dead by the time Jamie was already a main staple in the franchise.
Yeah, and the thing I liked about John was he was kind of against his mom in a sense. Like, he didn't believe that Michael Myers was still alive. He kept telling her, no, he's dead. Like, just get over it. He was against her the whole time. He wasn't on her side, which was a nice, I guess, thing about the film that added a little bit of, tension between the family, I guess. So it just added an extra layer that helped the movie out.
And that's the other thing, like how you mentioned him thinking Michael Myers is dead, but he doesn't actually see Michael as a threat, which almost everybody else in every other movie does.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's kind of a breath of fresh air in a sense. Like you said, everyone just assumes Michael's alive and everyone's scared of him, but he doesn't believe that he's alive, so he has nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
Well, so he thinks.
I guess some other things to quickly mention. It's so weird to start the franchise on Halloween 2 specifically.
Yeah, but I could see why they did it.
Yeah.
They wanted to continue Laurie's story rather than that Cult of Thorn bullshit,
Yeah.
which I think everyone can agree it's
Yeah.
just an awful decision.
They could have honestly done it from Halloween 1, but I think they still wanted the whole plot line of them being related.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the one thing that Halloween 2 did right, is creating that whole plot line.
So this is just one other thing to kind of nitpick about. It doesn't really explain how Michael Myers escaped or anything like that. It just shows him finding Loomis's old house, which honestly, how did he know where Loomis lived?
Yeah, that's a good point. But let's not forget the last time they tried to explain some inexplainable thing that Michael Myers did. So maybe we can let this one pass.
Yeah, we'll let it slide. So for the most part, the movie has a vibe of kind of like the typical slasher from like the late 90s, early 2000s, such as like Scream, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. It kind of had that vibe for the most part, especially being on a campus.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm glad they kind of went back to that typical slasher format rather than adding in all these mysterious elements like the last few that we've mentioned.
Yeah.
But I am glad that they went this route with this one.
I guess just one more thing that kind of pissed me off in a sense. It was just, I feel like, a screw up from the director's standpoint.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the scene where Jimmy checks out the house, I think it's played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. At the beginning of the scene, it was light outside. When he went in, checked around the house, got outside, it was dark.
Yeah.
So I don't think the sun goes down quite that quickly, but he wasn't in there for like 2 hours or whatever it took for the sun to go down completely, pretty much.
Yeah, that's true. I will say about Jimmy though, I was caught off guard and I really liked how he died.
Yeah.
We didn't actually see the action happen, but we just see a shot of him with a skate in his face.
Yeah.
And I just loved it.
That feels like a Friday the 13th kill, which, I mean, is the director, right? From Friday the 13th,
exactly.
2 and 3, yeah.
Yeah. So overall, what were your thoughts on this movie?
All in all, it's a great change of pace from the last Halloween movies. Plot-wise, I think it was tolerable for the most part. It didn't try to copy and paste from the last movies, which I'm thankful for, since I didn't want more Cult of the Thorn bullshit.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot better than the last few that we watched, and up to this point in the series, I think it's honestly in the top 3 probably for me. I don't know where it's going to end up after the next 4 movies that we're going to talk about, but all in all, it was a nice breath of fresh air, like you said, and it was kind of just going back to its roots and also putting a little bit of a twist on it, I guess. So I do like it for that reason.
Yeah, it's more of a modern 90s flair.
Yeah.
I feel like I got that vibe from it, which again, as you said, is a nice little twist to the movie.
Yeah. And finally, we come to the award ceremony, where we award one not-so-lucky nominee the Darwin Award. This award goes out to the character who made a stupid decision that resulted in them getting killed, someone else getting killed, or simply resulting in something bad happening that could have easily been avoided. This award can also be given to a character who is just plain dumb. Here are the nominees.
Today's first nominee is Ronnie the security guard for getting outsmarted by Michael Myers constantly and letting the kids escape from campus. From what it seems like, his job is to make sure unwanted people do not enter campus or unauthorized people do not leave campus, and he fails to do both in this movie. I would say he should probably get fired, but we think he should keep his day job so he does not pursue a career in writing, because even though he clearly can't do either, we will take the former on this one.
The only other nominee we will have is Will Brennan, for shooting Ronnie the security guard instead of making sure it's Michael Myers before shooting. Not only that, but he doesn't use the gun when Michael Myers comes by mere seconds later and kills him.
And the winner is Ronnie, for being completely incompetent at his job and wanting to quit his job to do something else he is also completely incompetent at.
And with all that being said, we hope you enjoyed our drinking game and opinion on Halloween H20. If you end up playing the game alongside the movie, or if you have any feedback or suggestions, let us know in the comments below. Also let us know in the comments how you would rate this movie in comparison to the other Halloween movies thus far.
Make sure to give us a follow on Facebook and make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next episode where we are going to be making a drinking game for Halloween Resurrection. If you want to check out our most recent video on Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, click on the box on the top right. Or if you want to see a playlist of all the drinking games and movies we review, click on the box below it. Thanks for tuning in, and this is us saying cheers to fears.